everyone, and welcome back to episode 29 of the Blues News podcast. Today, something a little bit different. We've got two guests rather than one, which is the first time I've ever done that. So we've got 𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗗𝗏 and Andy Leeder. Really excited to have you both on. We'll talk about why you're actually here in a moment, because there is a particular reason why you're both here, to do with a book that's Suepa are actually putting together. So before anything, Andy, just for people at home, so that we can get an idea of what you're both doing here and what we're going to be talking about, would you like to tell us what the book is, Roots and All?
Yeah. Okay, so it's this thing here, and it's something we've been working on for quite some time. So Roots and All is a collection of fan stories, fans from Southend United. Now, about 3-4 months ago, I saw on a LinkedIn site, an article by a guy called 𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗗𝗏, who writes a lot of historical general football stuff. And it was his chapter on supporting Southend in a book by Chelsea fans. And I thought that's quite interesting, quite good. So I ordered the book, and it was good. It was a good read. There were 36 stories in there. And I thought, well, we could probably have a crack at that. So I put an appeal out on social media, in particular on Shrimper Zone as well, and got quite a lot of interest. And, in the end, I got in just over 70 people who come forward. Ended up, we've got 65 stories. And it's a really good way of getting different fans' perspectives on watching Southend United and football in general, really.
Fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, Andy and Scott, for both coming on. We had some technical difficulties behind the scenes. I think it's taken us about an hour to get this set up, but we're finally here. Firstly, how are you, Scott? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, a lot of fans will know that I haven't been well over the last. I couldn't go to Wembley. Absolutely gutted about that. I've had an issue with my foot. And an operation, and I don't mind, and part amputation of that foot. I mean, I make no secret of that. But what that's done is it didn't let me go to Wembley, so I had to have the heartache of watching that at home. And one, not being there, out with my friends and having to watch it at home. But other than that, looking forward to the season.
Brilliant. Yeah. How are you, Andy? Are you good? We finally got the audio set up, so that's all good.
Yeah. And so I've got these posy headphones on, but it's all fine, and been plenty busy really. The book has been, I would say, between Paul Fitzgerald, who's my co-editor, and myself, we've spent well over 200 hours on putting this together. That's in addition to the time from all the authors.
Just quickly say on behalf of myself, one of the authors, and all of the other authors, I know I speak for them, and I just want to pay tribute to the hard work and graft that Andy and Paul put into this to make this possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to talk about the book and how you can buy it and everything a little bit later. But I think it would be good for us to get into the stories then. We're going to talk a bit about both your stories, your times as Southend fans. I know I've had you on before, Andy, so we probably won't talk too much about the founding of Suepa. I nearly called it Suepa then. You're going to tell me off. The founding of Suepa.
I always thought it was Suepa.
Yeah. There's no W in it.
No, Andy definitely wants us to call it Suepa, so we'll call it Suepa. But yeah, so we're going to start off by talking about, and also it's worth mentioning, I have also written a story in the book as well. I believe I'm one of the younger writers in the book. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, you're not quite the youngest. We've got authors from 17 to 84. So quite a good range, and we've also one of the guys who's written a fantastic family story through the generations. He's got his 2 young children who are 7 and 9 to contribute a small paragraph in it as well. Brilliant. So it's across the age range and across the whole breadth of Southend United fans.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy to have you both on. Firstly, you, Andy, to talk about the book, because I know so much hard work's gone into it. Such a brilliant idea. And obviously you, Scott, as well, because you've got a fantastic story and a really important message that you want to share as well. So we're going to get onto that in a moment. But if we start with you then, Andy, and talk about you and your background a little bit, but also your story. So for anybody who wants to watch the podcast that I did with Andy, quite a bit ago, I think it's quite a few months ago now, actually. And you probably notice I'm a little bit more confident this time, a little bit more loud than I was last time, and hopefully, it's improved a little bit as well. So, but if you want to just start off by introducing yourself a little bit, what you do with Suepa.
Yeah, so I'll try and be brief, but I run the Ex-Players Association, which is part of the Shrimpers Trust. We've been going 7 and a bit years now. We are the largest former players group, we think, in the world. We raised over £60,000 so far for different causes. That's for ex-players, for the club, for various charities and so on. We've done a whole range of things, and one of the most recent ones was the Bench for Barks campaign, which fans will see benches outside East and West stands now. There's 2 more that are going to be sited in Park in Southend. But a whole range of activities involving former players and involving fans too. We want to make this as inclusive as possible. Suepa is a great thing. It's a free thing. It's something that the club have embraced as well, increasingly so, which is fantastic. And with this book, for instance, we've got Kevin Mayer providing one of the initial words or forewords, Justin Rees as well, and a whole raft of ex-players involved in it as well. So, Suepa has become, I suppose, in many ways, a big part of my life. It takes up far too many hours, as my wife will verify. But at the moment, I'm living in Dorset. We moved here about 7 years ago. So doing it from afar as well, but still getting up to Roots Hall at least a dozen times a year. And we'll be having a launch party for the book, but we can probably come on for that, and I'll be up for that shortly too.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, just a quick idea there, Finn. You come to the launch party and you want to stream some of that live, that'd be great.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Right.
Maybe sort something out behind the scenes. I'll definitely be up for that. Well, do you find it difficult supporting Southend from afar then? Because I know it's not quite as far for me, but from Kent, it can be a little bit challenging at times with the travelling. But do you find it difficult?
I'm kind of used to it, really. I've never, since the age of 15, I've always lived at least 50 miles away from Southend, progressively more so Bristol and Plymouth. And a lot of my story in the book is focusing on the time when I was living in Plymouth and Bristol and hitchhiking to Southend games and various stories that come around that. So, used to it. My oldest son, Jim, and myself, we get up, leave the house at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, make sure we're up in Roots Hall in plenty of time because there's usually some match day hosting to do with ex-players. So it's generally, without wishing to tempt fate, the traffic tends to work. And it's become a way of life. Football is far more than the 90 minutes, as I think every single writer in this book will testify, and that's certainly true for us. It's like going to a big social club, really, when you go to Southend. It's a great family feel for the club. Absolutely,
I've definitely felt that, even though I'm kind of an outsider, as they might say, not actually being from Essex, but, I feel part of the family. And when you're there, it doesn't really matter where you're from, if I'm honest. But so
common enough.
If you want to talk about your story, then if you could just summarise to people at home what your story is about, and then we're going to talk about a few specific things because I've read both stories. I've read them a couple of times each. Both absolutely brilliant stories. And so if you want to just summarize for people at home, obviously don't give too much away because you want them to follow. But if you want to just summarize what your story is about, then Andy.
Yeah. So it's a focus really on the 80s and what it was like to get to games. Some of the odd experiences we'll find. I mean, traveling to, for instance, one away day I made was coming from. Decided to go and see us play Hereford in the FA Cup. So I cycle from my digs about 8 miles away from Plymouth Station, get a puncher, run the bike back home, hitchhike into Plymouth, get the train, eventually get to Hereford after about 5 hours, watch us lose 3-1, and it's then home time. I find British Rail in complete meltdown by the time I get to the station, and it takes about 7 or 8 trains exchanges going from Exeter, Bristol Parkway, Bristol Temple Meads, Newton Abbot, all of that stuff. Get back to Plymouth at midnight. It's pissing down a rain. No one wants to give a 20-year-old bedraggled student a lift back to anywhere near my digs. So I walk the whole way. A mile outside from home, I get stopped by 2 policemen who say that they've heard reports of a peeping Tom in the area and want to know what I've been up to. So I managed to find the rather sodden Hereford v Southend programme as evidence of my insanity, and declare I've never known anyone called Tom, so I'm definitely not him. And that asks for a lift for the remaining mile, and away they go. And it's just one of many experiences. We've all had them. In the days before mobile phones, I decided that I'd go and meet my mate Brian up in Liverpool, and with the going to be a pub weekend with Southend playing at Tranmere. So I hitchhike up to Brian's in Tranmere. When I get there, he's not there. His mum said he's had to go to an interview in Oxford, which he really couldn't miss, but no way of telling me while I was on the road. So all that way for nothing. So she directs me to the local pub, saying his brother Frank's there and he'll see me right and buy me a pint. I get to the pub, realise I haven't got a clue what Frank looks like, and it's full of lonely blokes in there. And the day just sort of gets worse and worse. We lose 2-0. I get back to back to Brian's mum's to keep on the sofa. She's forgotten I was staying there the night. Have to wake her up, and it's all things like that make people's memories, and the book is full of that. It really is. There's some fantastic. I mean, I know we're going to focus a bit on Scott's stories, but there's some great family stories. There's a lot of funny stuff in there, emotional stuff. Some of it quite Churchillian, really. And every single story in there is heartfelt. People have taken a lot of care on it. I mean, some of the stories in there, will be on Anglo-Italian trips. Away days in the 60s and even 50s, when it was a very different time for watching football to what it is now. What it was like in the North Bank back in the pack days, wearing white coats at Gillingham in the early 70s, as everyone pretended to be butchers. Sorry, Scott.
So that was a Millwall thing. That was inspired by Millwall, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah, there was a lot of copycatting, I think. Yeah, and it must have looked quite odd, to see a gaggle of people up in the away end, and they're all wearing white coats. But and then we take it right up to date. We've got Andy Ward's story on the American Boy thing, which went viral overseas. We've got stories from people who are overseas, from the Australian outback, and supporting Southend from there, which is even more testing than from here in Dorset. One person wrote a story and then passed away back in 2001, and someone found that story, and we've put that in the book, and that's a superb story, because that's all about going up to Scotland to see one of our players who's an international, Derek Spence, make his debut. And that's a lovely little tale. We've got a little surprise one, which I'll keep under wraps. We've got one ex-player who we said we don't want ex-players writing, but this guy, Gary Nelson, he was a fan before he became a player. So he's written about what it was like to be a fan back in the day. So a huge variety.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Gary Nelson there. Actually, with your help, I actually got him on the podcast. One of my favourite guests this day. And I think that's part of what I love about the podcast as well, is learning, and the book as well, is learning about the history of the club through other people telling me it, rather than just searching out.
Yeah.
actually hearing people's stories. And as you said, there's so many brilliant stories. We've just got literally just 2 today, but there are so many others that are just absolutely brilliant. And I can't wait for the book to be, all put together and we can really read it. It would be great. So,
just one thing. I mean, I sent one of the stories to Justin Rees, so I tried to tell him what was being done, and his reply, I'll just read the words, was "Wow." He said, if all the stories are half as good as that, this is going to be amazing, and he can't wait to read it. So, I know he's a Southend fan and he's going to be positive, which he always is, but he did mean that. Watching Southend, for any fan, I think it becomes, as I said, more than just the match. It's a feeling of belonging. It's a feeling that you're not alone. And although sometimes if you're in Dorset, you are probably alone. But when you get to your tribe and with your friends and the people you're used to seeing every game, then it becomes a good positive thing. And you can be travelling miles and miles, and sometimes I've travelled on trains and been the only one, and then all of a sudden someone pops on who's a fan. Doesn't even have to be that you're the same club that you follow, and you get chatting and you just enjoy the moment, really.
Absolutely. Well, so in the story then, and the book as a whole, you spoke about a lot of memories and times that you loved with Southend. If you could have one memory that just sums up why you love this club, might be quite difficult, but just one moment that sums up why you love this club, what would that be?
Sure. Well, I think from a lot of what I've done with Suepa, that's given so many good memories, and will continue to do. I mean, you have, for instance, the match for James when we had James Walker 2 and a bit years ago, when we had Damien Scannell run 50 miles to get to the game, and he came on at half time, and that was quite emotional when he wasn't fit to play after running 50 miles, but that was good. But I think that the biggest moment for me was when the reason we founded Suepa was when we had Alan Moody. We did a campaign for Alan, who had to lost both of his legs due to illness, and we ran a campaign and we got him back, and we raised a lot of money to help him buy a new car to meet his new disability needs. And then he came back again, and we had 20 of his colleagues there, and corralling 2 ex-players on a match day is bad enough, but 20 is quite a challenge because they're all like cats and they just go off in different directions. But we got all 20, and the only way we could get Alan onto the pitch was at the northeast corner. So we gathered them all there, and then Alan accelerated up on his chair to get onto the pitch. And as soon as the fans saw that, Nicky G on the PA system didn't have a chance to introduce them. The whole stadium just rose as one. And that was, to me, a fantastic moment to applaud not only Alan but all of his ex-colleagues there as well. That was a tear-jerking moment, I would say.
Absolutely. At the start, when you actually formed Suepa, since then you've helped so many people. You mentioned there Moody, and people like Mickey Stead as well, with the match for Mickey Stead. You've helped so many other people as well through Suepa and the work that you do there. Was that part of the reason that you wanted to start it, or is that something that's kind of come as a result of starting it?
No, it was always in our aim to help ex-players. We didn't really know what we was going to be doing, because things just sort of fall out of the woodwork. I mean, Mickey all of a sudden got ill. I didn't know, and his wife, who I've met him and his wife before, and she rang me from his hospital bed saying Mickey's in dire straits, and we never had a benefit match in mind at the time, but we just got I just corralled so many of his ex-players once Mickey had started to recover to ring him up, and Mickey said that what we did for them with the match and the fundraising really helped, because they were in financial problems as well. But The ex-players, his colleagues that he hadn't heard from for donkey's years, ringing him up. That was fantastic. So it is very much a social thing. So what we had in mind, I think, was helping ex-players, but I think more than that, now I want to make sure that what we do reaches a wider fan base. I mean, Suepa is followed by about 6,000 people online at the moment, and through various platforms. But we need to make sure that all Southend fans know about this, and I'm sure they will enjoy it. And one of the roles I've got is through running now the history group, and it brings me on to one of the purposes of the book is to raise funds which we're going to put in a special super fund, what we're calling, so that when the ground gets redeveloped by 𝗘𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗦, we will have a pool of money to assist the club, we hope, if they'll agree, in setting up a museum, because there's so much memorabilia out there in various shapes and forms that people will love. And Suepa is about creating new memories. This will help create new memories. It'll help people see what's out there and enjoy it. And as I've seen through other clubs who run museums, once you start these things, then they are self-perpetuating. Stuff will sort of kind of fall out of the sky. I mean, we've got some quite amazing stuff that we've found, but there was going to be a lot more out there. So to bring it to life is one of the purposes of the book.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to speak to Scott in just a moment. But what are your next steps for Suepa then? So you may not know, but right now, but what are the next plans, and what do you kind of want to do in the future with Suepa?
Yeah. Well, I just said I would quite like it to just sort of get a wider appreciation throughout the club. That will come through things like we'll have the Meet the Blues Day, which I'm sure is going to happen just before the season starts, which we'll be selling the book, and so there'll be a bit more awareness there. But it's carrying on doing more of the same. We're going to have another fundraiser for James Walker, I hope, who's has made some superb strides thanks to the money that everyone contributed, but that money only goes so far, and we don't want it to plateau, so we're going to be doing something there. We're going to have one or two more evening events. We want to work more closely with the club. At the moment, we all know that the facilities at the club aren't great for holding things, which is why we've ended up going to the Essex Bowls Club to hold our evening with Roy McDonough and so on. But we would dearly like to be in with the club and doing that and making sure that income stays in the club. So working with Tom Lawrence and Riley Doe is important and we are doing that. Suepa last year was sponsored for the first time. It's going to be sponsored again. That money goes to directly help the club. So it's and the club are using that money to improve some of the decor that happened within the Legends Lounge. There's going to be some, I better be a bit quiet, but there's going to be some nice stuff for the start of the season that's going to be working as a result of this sponsorship. So lots going on, but I don't want to. Scott looks as though he's eager to speak, so let's give him have a word.
Well, do you think, just one last thing before we speak to Scott, who has a brilliant story, so I'm eager to speak to him. But do you think it's going to be easier for you to work with the club now that because you're in charge?
100%. Yeah, I mean, there was always a barrier before, and you never quite knew what you was going to get. But that said, Suepa grew and was. I mean, I had one or two people say that the only thing that was positive throughout the last 6 or 7 years was Suepa, and we do try to be positive. But working with Justin and the other consortium members, they are up for they up for it. They know how important the history is for the club. One of the things I'm hoping to do with Justin is go on a tour of club museums, and he's keen to do that, to go and see what other clubs do before we think about bringing one into a redeveloped Roots Hall perhaps. So I am careful that it's very much early days yet, and there's going to be no guarantees on this, but he is keen. And Yeah, would have never got that before, would we? So not in a month of Sundays. But to have that input now is good.
Definitely. Well, we're going to talk to you now, Scott. Thank you so much, Andy. We could probably talk for literally hours about the work that you do with Suepa, and so many great things. I think the museum is just another great thing that you're planning to do. But we're going to talk to Scott now, who has, well, I don't think that Andy could have picked a better person to accompany him on the podcast, because your story, we were talking about it before, Scott, but your story, it is so different to anybody else's. It doesn't necessarily focus on the great times of being a Southend fan, actually. But for listeners who might not know you or might not be aware of who you are, would you mind just explaining how you became to become a Southend fan and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I've been going to Southend now since I was around 5 or 6. My dad took me to my first game. My dad was a West Ham fan. Took me to my first game, which was against Newcastle at home, 4-0. So, which is a game, and I'm sure Andy remembers that game quite well as well. That game has always been sort of stood out in the early 90s era of Southend United. Like I said, my dad was a West Ham fan, and he wanted me to be West Ham. My dad was from Canning Town, so it made sense for him. Though him and after he met my mother, they moved down to Hockley in 1979, part of a influx of EastEnders moving out to Essex for a better standard of life, getting out of the city, greener spaces, areas like Billericay, Rayleigh, Southend, all areas developing this stockbroker belt, if you want, of a growing service industry, thanks to the Thatcher government of the 80s. Not so lucky if you were in things like coal mines, but that aside, not getting political. I was born in Rochester Hospital, and the way I saw things is, I could go and watch West Ham play, and I'd follow the club that my dad supported. Trouble is, though, I'm not an EastEnder. I'm not a Cockney. I'm not, as they say out there, born under the sound of Bow Bells. I'm a simple guy born in Rochester Hospital. A Southend United and Essex, Estuary English, represents who I am. So Southend United represents who I am. I could have gone to West Ham, but there's not that connection there. I always think if more fans supported their local club, when I mean local, I don't mean to the nth degree, their local professional club, put it that way, from since time immemorial, I would think the league structure would look a lot different. I think Southend would be a regular team playing in a higher division due to our catchment area, which is absolutely fantastic. You only have to look at the crowds we're getting now, right, in the 5th tier of football. I would argue, and I don't know this, and this will be anecdotal, I don't think there's a 5th tier anywhere else in the world that has the same attendance as we do.
No, I don't.
At the 5th tier, potentially even the 4th tier. If you take away the bigger clubs in the English league for 4th tier, then I'm sure we'd be up there as well. But that's thanks to our growing professional league structure. So I've also always supported Southend. Been away many games, many home games. I played the drum for a few years in the West Stand. I've been known for taking my shirt off on occasions, scaring the women and children. But yeah, it's been a long roller coaster, and I've enjoyed it. And as people will read in my story in the book, Southend United has given me everything, and at the same time taking everything away from me. So.
Yeah, mentioned there about the fact that you were the drummer for ages, and I think that's quite interesting. What was that like, being the drummer? Because it's always something that I've wondered about.
Yeah, so being the drummer, I did it in a kind of interim period. We had, I was part of myself and another Southend fan called Lee Smith. We started the Blue Voice. We started the Blue Voice. I believe it was 2008, something like that. We started it because we felt that we need to organise better the atmosphere roots all, and that's where that started. And Lee, who we call Smithy, he used to play the drum all the time. And after a while, the Ron effect got to him in some respects, and he drifted away and went into other things. He went into coaching football, kids football, and I take my hat off to him for doing that. That left me in a position where I needed to take up the mantle of banging that drum. I'm not a musical person by any means, though I love music. I'm not adept to playing music, but I learned a few things. I banged that drum. I took it to places. I mean, there was one time at Plymouth away, and this would have been early 2010s, maybe, early 2010s. People might be able to find the game by this. I think Plymouth either scored a late equaliser or a late winner, very late on. I have got the I've taken, what can I use as apparatus? Right, I've taken the drumstick. Right, I've turned round and I have whacked it, let go of it, and hit it against the back wall. Now, this back wall is a corrugated, like Perspex or whatever material they're using. It has bounced off. It has flew down the stand, nearly took this lady's head off, and thankfully it ended up in some seating and didn't hurt anyone. But yeah, that was a worrisome moment because the actual drumsticks, the end of them, can be quite tough, and if that hits you square on the head, it's almost like being hit by a brick. So I'm glad I didn't injure anyone there. But after a while, then Dan McAvoy, which a lot of Southend fans will know, took over completely. I started to go into the dark side of what my story talks about, so that took me away from doing things like drum and all that. Like I said, Smithy, who started the Blue Voice, went on to other things, and we ended up passing the whole thing on the Blue Voice, everything on to Dan. And Dan's taken it from strength to strength. He's a great kid, and he's learned a lot on the drum. It's amazing the amount of drummers I've seen they learn on the job and they get better and better and better. But great atmosphere done by them, and it was fun banging the drum. Calluses on the old, like between the thumb and the index.
Yeah.
I used to I didn't have gloves at the time, but when Southend were away and we're pushing and we're pushing and we're pushing, you think your job. I've got to keep going. This song is going, and this song is going on for 10 minutes, and then you'll get periods where, as you guys will well know, a song picks up. It picks up. It gets loud. It goes quieter again, but people are still singing it. Then it picks up again. It picks up again, and then we'll bang, and the drumming banging with that is going along with that. So it was fun to answer your question. Yes.
Do you miss it a little bit?
Well, playing the drum? No, I don't. I don't, because Dan is good at what he does. Yeah. And for me to do that would be a downgrade, and I would never want to do anything that would harm our atmosphere, as small as that sounds. But that end, the W block or in the north, thrives off that drum. It has been a fixture of Southend United's home support for now. What we're looking at? We're pushing 20 years. 20 years. We've had about 4 or 5 drums in that time, but it's part of it. And our home support rely on that, and they subliminally connect to that. If there was a home game and there was no drum, I think the atmosphere would be quite confusing and quite duller, really, because that leads the charge.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy for a lot of other fan bases will kind of judge the drum. I've seen quite a few others will kind of be critical of the drum in areas, but I think when you actually have it, it's brilliant. And
a great example of how good it can be. And I don't like to admit it. You might have been there, and you might have been around it. It's Aldershot. Aldershot don't have just one drummer. No, they have 2 or 3 playing different types of drums. So whereas we've got that same sound, and our only differential is the beat, they've got, I don't know the names for the other types of drums, like a bass drum, a snare, or whatever. But because they've got different ones, they can approach the atmosphere with the music and the drumming in different ways. But I tip my hat to Aldershot. They are the best that I have seen. Certainly, it's watching Southend.
Yeah, I'd agree. But yeah, I probably before I started coming to Southend games, even I was probably maybe a little bit critical or a little bit skeptic of having a drum at a football game. But I think when you really experience it, it just adds to the experience of the game. And
I think I like to think of the drum as the heartbeat of what's going on the pitch.
yeah, absolutely, that's a great way.
Goes out for a corner, right? Bang, 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 and then it's
Yep.
It's building anticipation. It's building it up. It's building it up. It's getting the fans clapping. It's creating something, you know.
Definitely. Well, if we're going to talk about your story then, and I've said it many times, but I think it's one of the most touching stories I think I've read, and also one that will resonate really a lot with people, even more today maybe than back when you were experiencing it. So, if you want to tell everybody at home then what your story is about and what the themes are in it.
So, my story. And having this confirmed by Andy, I haven't obviously read all the other stories because that's going to be in the book. But from what I've been told, mine is a kind of outlier because my story is it's a dark tale and it's a lived experience like everyone else's story, but it doesn't go to glorify watching Southend. My story comes out, I'll give you a brief overview. My story comes at the fact as me as a supporter, starting off as a normal fan who just started going, right? Southend then grew on me and become part of who I am. The trouble with football is there's a culture that comes with football.
Yep.
Some are part of it, some are not. I was part of that outer culture that would be dressing smart for games. I would never wear shirts. Never wear a Southend shirt. The only time I ever might wear a Southend shirt is if I was on holiday, just to show I'm Southend. But never wear colours. Wear nice clothes, smart clothes, Prada, whatever. All part of a football culture. But the dark side of that culture was the drink, which was a gateway to the drugs.
Yep.
Specifically cocaine. And it took me on a roller coaster of watching Southend, being a part of it, playing the drum, to then moving forward, just going to the pub on match days, never leaving the pub, not going to the game. But having to be in the vicinity, having to be around the other fans was crucial to me. But the real reason why I could have wrote a story, another story that I've had that's about a day out of the way trip we had or something like that to do with the book. But I really wanted to share this lived experience because it's a tale that starts up here, ends up down there, and comes back somewhere near where it started. A tale of redemption.
Yeah.
But it's a warning and to younger fans how you can get caught up in this world and spend more time worrying about where you're getting your next fix and less time worrying that Southend are 2-0 up, 2-0 down or 1-1.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell that story. I want to tell it as honest as possible.
Yeah.
And I think it will raise a few eyebrows when people read it and think, well, why has Andy included that in the book? I mean, I think what might be good is if we hand over to Andy for a minute, if he just wants to say a couple of words about my story that he's read, just to get a opinion of somebody else looking inwards on that.
Yeah, go for it, Andy.
Yeah, it's a joint decision on this book with Paul Fitzgerald and myself, and we didn't turn away any stories at all. Scott's story certainly stood out, but there are others out there that are unique. Well, I think they're all unique, but Scott's is different.
Yeah.
He said, before he started, do you want my mind's dark? Well, yeah. I mean, it's football's and watching football's all about life, and life comes with some downs as well as with ups. So yeah, it's a fascinating insight into where football can take you. And Scott, is born and bred a Southend fan, and what impacted where it took him through other influences, through drink and whatever. It was quite interesting, I must say. This is probably the longest time I've ever spoken to Scott as well, to be honest. I mean, he's always been a fan that, as he said, most people know about, shirt on or shirt off. And he has bought me a pint before, but he probably won't remember it because he'd had one too many himself.
That's so true. And just sorry to cut across you, Andy. Like I said, with the story, it is about me. It's about me. Now, as I say in the book, I'm an only child. I crave attention. I'll fully admit that. And I love that people read about my story, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. But there is a reason behind that. Because as I say in it, if I could just change one Southend fan's journey that is starting to spiral, that is starting to get into that world, that dark underside of football, if I can stop one person from going down that track, then I'm happy. That's mission complete for telling my story.
Thank you. Well, it's and I think it's something that at home for maybe younger fans, it is something that if you don't know the ugly side of that kind of culture, and you look at your green streets or your football factories and things that almost glorify it, romanticize it in that sort of way, and then you read a story like yours of the real dark sides, and there are some real moments in that story that show just how much it crept into your home life and family life, some really personal and horrible things for you to go through that came as a result of that. And I think if this podcast can do one thing, and your story and the book, then keeping people away from that kind of life and that kind of as you mentioned, then that would be great. So if you could give young fans at home then one piece of advice, let's say they're maybe tempted about getting involved in that sort of lifestyle, what would you give young fans at home, that piece of advice?
So just to clarify, you mentioned some of the football films, like Football Factory and stuff like that. As I say in my story, I was never involved in the violent side of it.
No.
I was part of the scene, as in the culture, knowing what's going on, everything like that. But I never got involved in the violent side of that. I've never been a fighter. I'm not a fighter. I mean, Finn, you could probably knock me out quite easily. Probably because I'm drunk. But if I could give advice, I could easily sit here and say, no, don't do drugs, don't do this, don't do that. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to say, when you take things to the excess, I have a very addictive personality, and again, only child syndrome, all of that, wanting the attention, it would be me having to drink more, having to eat more than anyone else, having to show off doing this, that, and the other. When all the time you're doing damage to your body, scars that I have today. I couldn't go to Wembley. Why couldn't I go to Wembley? Because back then I was 25 stone. Why did I get to that? Because I kept eating and drinking loads of crap. Right? Got diabetic ulcer in my foot. Went to the bone. Had to have the little toe taken off and a bit around the edge of my foot amputated, which means I didn't get to go to Wembley. So the scene built my friendships, the friendships I've had for life, great people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was a price to pay for that. Yeah. And it's, like I say, the scars are with me today. But the advice that I would give is take everything in moderation. Enjoy the scene of football, the camaraderie, the tribalism is a beautiful thing. And I truly believe football, to a lot of people, is a religion. I mean, you look at a religion, Church of England, you go to church, you worship Jesus, you worship God, blah, blah, blah. We go to 𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗗𝗗𝗏. That's our place of worship. We worship Kevin Mayer or whoever's running the show. It's the same thing. It is a religion. But like with any religion, you get your fanatics. So you get your fanatics who everyone know, great people, right? We'll go all over the country watching football. But as we've seen in other religions, you get a more militant side of that. You get a darker side of that. Yeah. And that is how I liken it to what was going on in me. Like you said, and what I wrote in my book, it cost me a marriage. It cost me living with my daughter. You know, I won't go into it, but if people read about what happened at my daughter's birth, you know, that point is when you know that it's at its lowest. And just for the sake of anyone listening, I'm not talking about my daughter being born per se. I'm talking about the situation around that, which people will read in the book. And quite frankly, I find it embarrassing. And I'm sure other people will find it disgraceful. But I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to bullshit. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything in this story, because that's what it can do to you. You know, it's what the drugs can do to you and everything. And thankfully, it is a tale of redemption. And, well, like I said, we started here. We ended up on the floor. And I would say we're near parity where we started. I'm not perfect. Still like to have a drink now and again. You know, I try to live a clean lifestyle. But, yeah, just stopping one person from following the same path. And I throw it open to any Southend fan who feels they're in that situation. Get in contact with me. I'll chat to anyone, and I'll give them some guidance. Put an arm around them and say, this ain't for you. Don't waste your life and ruin your life over it.
I think it's so inspirational, Scott. I really do. And you said it's about a redemption story. Then, how did you go about kind of cleaning up certain areas of your life and getting back on track? What was that process like?
So I think with a lot of people who are addicts and stuff like that, there's a point where you hit rock bottom. There's a point where you're at the basement. And that was after my first marriage collapsed, not living with my daughter, in my early 30s, having to go back and live with my parents, which, you know, is embarrassing in a way. It is embarrassing. Towel between my legs, so to speak. But the redemption was, like I say in the story, meeting my current wife. Thankfully, there'll be no more wives. My current wife, Samantha, who a lot of my friends know and have said it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She doesn't take any shit from me, right? She'll give me the proverbial slap round the face when I step out of line, which is quite often, and she'll put me in my place. But the key thing there is she understands me. She is the biggest anti-drugs football. People fighting football is stupid. She doesn't even like football. She likes ice hockey. She goes to watch 𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗗𝗏 ice hockey. But that's all right when they have a punch up on the ice rink. Anyway, but even though she hates everything that I love, she understands me through the optics of that. And she has been my rock to redemption. And it's all about losing everything. I believe a lot of the time people can only recover until they've hit the bottom, until they've lost everything. And that was me. And I had to build it up. So, and it was costing me my health. So, yeah, it's a tale of redemption. And I'm pleased it has a happier ending than where people will read the story and think it's going. Because it might not have ever been a happy ending, and I could have been brown bread. You know?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I believe you ended on was a John Lennon quote about happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll read it out for people who don't know this quite at home. So it's when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment. I told them they didn't understand life. So, you know, what does happiness look like for you today then? And maybe what did it look like back then when, you know, you're engulfed in the culture? And how has it changed?
Yeah, I brought up the words earlier, only child syndrome.
Yep.
I know my faults, and I always strive for acceptance, to be accepted. To, you know, I want, you know, when Andy was just talking about my story, my heart skips a beat and my eyes light up because someone's talking about me, someone's showing me attention. You know, I won't shy away from that as a fault.
Yeah.
But I have to use that in the right way. I believe, you know, a lot of people are introverts and some people are extroverts. You know, when I was going on a downward spiral. I was huge, like 25 stone, and I'm 13 and a half, 14 stone now. It's over 10 stone I lost. And it wasn't easy, and it was part of it was from being ill because of the things I did. But it's a shield. It's a shield. Having bravado, being a larger than life character, I always thought is like a shield in front of me to protect me from not being recognised, not being noticed, and that's just how I went through life like that, ducking and diving. You know, you go to like a job interview, and I would spout some and write down some right crap on my CV, but I knew if I talked the talk, as long as I could make sure I walked the walk a bit, you'll get through it. And that's how it's gone. And it just, like I said, it got to rock bottom, and it needed to change. It needed to change. And we all get older, and we all learn life lessons. I've learned my problems and the fault I am as a person, and couple that with, like you said, the culture. That was a really bad mix. But there'll be other people and friends of mine that I know who can go football. They can have a good drink, watch the game, go home. Nice evening with the wife, fine. But for some people, that's not enough. When you have experienced being up here, a level of euphoria, and you're down here, you know what it's like to be there. If you've never gone down that path, you never know. You've never experienced that. You can't miss what you don't know. That's why I would say to all the younger lot, stay away from the drugs, because it's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. We need better education on it and what the damage it does to people. And I'm a prime example of what it has. But I thought, I know the story is me. I know that. But it was the only thing that I could tell that would be a warning and help other people. I don't want people to praise this story because it's about me or whatever. I want them to like it because it sends a clear message, and the fact it was different from everybody else's. I want it to raise an eyebrow, and most of all, I want it to be the bare truth of how bad things can be.
Thank you, Scott. You know, I really do think it will really help people at home. And yeah, opening up about it like this is really the way that you break down that kind of barrier. And why do you think that so many young people get caught up in it? Do you think it's like a herd mentality sort of thing where lots of people get trapped in it, or do you think it's like we were saying, to do with Football Factory, Green Street, those sort of, you know, glorifying in a way? What do you think is the main reason people get sucked into that?
It's acceptance. It's tribalism. It's a kind, you can look at it a bit like gang culture, but it's based around football, and it's, you know, it's not to do with knives and rubbish like that. But a bit like gang culture revolves around certain type of music. In some instances, London drill music or whatever. Football culture revolves around the football, and football just becomes the beacon. And the social circle and the scene revolves around it. So if there was no Southend United, I wouldn't have 90% of my social circle. We say sometimes on away games, it's not about the football. When has it ever been about the football? It's about going somewhere. It's about going somewhere new. It's about having a laugh and a joke with your mates. A bit different background, different scenery. Yes, we love Southend, right? And it's great to watch. But there's a bonus effect, the football. And that is a beacon that draws a community together. But with the young kids, you know, they want to be accepted, and you mix that with drink, you mix that with drugs at an early age, and as I said, it can cause its problems. But it really is down to tribalism and being part of something. Especially, you know, when you go to a away game, it's them versus us. We've got to band together, and we've got to sing because we're representing Southend, we're representing the Six, and we've got a point to prove.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Scott. And one thing I just want to talk about as well is you were showing me a little bit before the podcast your tattoos. You've got quite a few. If you wouldn't mind just showing everybody just some of your tattoos. Because...
Well, the problem we've got here is people will be familiar with me because the shirt's off quite a lot of football. Obviously, the camera's mirrored. So my
Right.
nickname would be on there, True Blue. I don't know if I can quickly change the camera around while on the fly. Yes, I can. I'm good, and I too good, and I look True Blue.
Oh,
So that's
nice.
always been my nickname since 𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗗𝗗𝗏 started.
Wow.
Back in the early noughties, I was one of the original kind of members. I think it was back in 02 or 03, one of the original members, and I just used the name True Blue, and that's just stuck ever since. I had a custom ring made, SUFC.
Nice.
In silver. I've had that for years.
Very nice.
Again, Southend United always in my heart, written on my arm.
Wow.
You've got, I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's really. They're not some. You know what? There's some that ain't really good tattoos either, because I got them when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I thought, yeah, look at me, I got a tattoo. And you don't really think about what it's going to look later on, or the shading, or anything like that. Obviously, the Southend crest, that blue is the wrong blue. It's too light. And you've got one team in Essex written underneath that. And lastly, you've got the first ever tattoo I got was that in Magaluf in 04. And it's just some writing. I don't know if I can get that in here. Like there. That's that. All that says is one love, one team, pride of Essex, Southend United. So
Wow.
Though I do know fans, I won't name any names because they might not wish to be identified. A friend of mine who was part of the culture, as the whole Southend United crest full back.
Wow.
The whole back. So from the top of his shoulders down to his coccyx area, just Southend United crest. The current one. Not the old one. Not like the one you've got on there, Finn. Not that one. But whole back. Whole back.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
If anyone's interested in Southend tattoos, if you look up threads in Shrimper Zone, there will be a thread in there about Southend United tattoos, and lots of people have got different ones.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I'll try and link that
The
down below.
trouble I do get, though, is when I'm working, and for people who don't know, I'm a manager at Best Taxi Company, but I'm also a driver myself. And customers say, "Oh, what's that ring in your hair? Is True Blue? Oh, are you a Chelsea fan?"
Oh.
Honestly, no, Southend. Oh, you're Southend. What's your Premier League team?
Oh.
I could literally drop a C bomb there and then, but I'm not. So I'll tone it down and just say fuck off.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Scott, for opening
Pleasure.
up and everything, telling your story. It's been so interesting to hear. Thank you very much, Andy, as well, for coming on. That pretty much wraps up the podcast. Just before we end it, Andy, if you want to tell everybody how to pre-order, how to buy the book, when the book launches, everything like that.
Yeah, so you can order it online now. We will be getting the supply out for delivery in the week commencing the 21st of July. Before then, we do have a launch party, which we'll advertise at the weekend, which is on Friday, the 18th of July at 7 o'clock in the Shrimpers Bar. Scott and myself and one or two others, one or two ex-players, Frankie Banks along. And we hope to make that a celebration of what the book's about, sell a few more copies. We've already sold... Yeah, sign it. Yeah, there's one or two writers. I think we've got about 25 to 30 writers of the group coming along to that. So there's a few practicing their signatures now. The book is just £10. About £7 of that is profit, and that will go directly into the fund that we're creating to hopefully one day fund the club museum. So in buying this book, hopefully you're not just getting something that's enjoyable, you're getting something that will be doing good for every Southend fan in the future. We will be there at Meet the Blues Day when that is selling that. We'll be in the club shop, I hope, at some point, in the Shrimpers stall at the Shrimpers Bar on match days. You won't be able to get away from the book, hopefully, and we will use all our writers as well to sell as many copies as we can. In my previous book, Routes 92 sold 2,000. If we could sell a similar amount now, that would be fantastic and raise quite a decent sum to set aside for this museum ambition.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for coming on, talking about the books. Thank you so much, Scott. Is there anything either of you want to say just before I end it?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say again, reiterate, thanks to Andy and Paul Fitz
Yep.
for making this possible, for allowing me to tell my story and accepting my story. As I said earlier, I think I speak for all the other writers, thanks to Andy and Paul.
Yep.
It's going to be a good occasion for the book launch. It'd be great to see a lot of people there. You know, you can have a picture with my foot if you want, and I'll sign it. You know, it's anything's possible. But jokes aside, it's something really good. And I think, Andy, and I haven't said this yet, I think if this does well, I think here's to a volume 2.
Well, you never know. You never know. This one's taken a long time to get to sorted. There's 100,000 words in there as it is. Yeah, there's certainly these things. People say, "Oh, I wish I could have, contributed to that." So maybe, but let's get this one out there first and have some fun with it. I would say, I think it's one of the best things we've ever done. It's tight. Fitz has been brilliant in making sure that we've literally dotted every I and crossed every T or whatever. So, it's a damn good read. It's not just Scott's story. There's all of the authors out there. They've generally put their heart and soul into their story, and every single story is heartfelt.
Yeah, don't want anyone to be any misconceptions that this is just about me. I am but a single story within lots of other stories. So, and I've seen snippets of one or two of them. We've got some great writers, and what's great as well, these writers are a demographic right across the fan base, which Andy said about the huge age range, and that comes with huge different experiences. It's going to be a great book. Everyone should buy it, not just because I'm in it, but it's because of the hard work of Andy and Paul. And brilliant.
Just one. Yeah, I mean, one of the writers is a producer on Match of the Day, for instance. Wow. There's complete spectrum of people that you wouldn't almost expect to get involved in this, but that they are, and all got a good story.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much both for coming on. I'll leave all the links for the book, everything like that down below. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up today's podcast. I'm catching a flight in about 5 or 6 hours, so won't get too much sleep tonight, but I'm going to Croatia, so I can't complain too much. Get this edited, and it should be posted tomorrow at the time of filming, so on the Friday, which will be good. So yeah, thank you both a lot for coming on. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome back on any time. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone for watching as well. And yeah, if you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. It does help out a lot. Go and buy the book. You won't regret it. There's plenty of great stories in there. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one.